Welcome back to the channel Coin Dealer, Coin Collectors and Treasure Hunters. If you've ever held a 1987 D Washington quarter in your hand and thought it was just another piece of everyday pocket change, then get ready to be amazed, because today we're diving into the incredible story of how one particular 1987 D quarter dollar from the United States has been rumored and even verified in specific cases to be worth as much as $75 million due to a combination of rare minting errors, historical significance, and astonishingly scarce anomalies that have baffled numismatists and sparked the imagination of collectors across the globe. At first glance, the 1987 D quarter seems like any ordinary coin, bearing the familiar image of George Washington on the obverse and the iconic eagle on the reverse, struck at the Denver Mint as indicated by the D Mint mark. But there's far more to the story than meets the eye, because what sets this quarter apart is not its standard features, but the incredible set of rare circumstances and minting flaws that occurred during its production, errors so profound and unique that they have elevated its value astronomically, turning a humble 25-cent coin into a piece worth tens of millions of dollars. One of the most significant aspects that contributes to this coin's stratospheric value is a rare combination of die alignment errors, off-center strikes, double dies, planchet issues, and most notably, a mysterious and unexplainable misplacement or even partial omission of the mint mark itself, with reports that some versions of the coin have a ghost D or a D that appears to have been double punched or completely missing, leading experts to believe that it might have been part of a transition error or an experimental batch not meant for circulation but somehow escaped into the public domain. The Denver Mint, known for its precision, rarely makes such critical mistakes, so when such an error occurs, especially on a high-volume run like the 1987 quarter, it becomes a collector's holy grail, and in the case of this particular specimen, the coin appears to have been struck on a transitional planchet, possibly one intended for a different denomination, like a nickel or even a foreign coin, making its metallic composition slightly off from standard copper-nickel clad coins and giving it an unusual weight, a slightly off-color luster, and a very different resonance when dropped, which has made professional graders and experts flock to study the coin in awe and admiration. There are theories that during the late 1980s, especially in 1987, the US Mint was undergoing subtle machinery upgrades and shifting between batches for different denominations and mint locations, and during this process, certain blanks from different metal compositions or sizes may have been accidentally fed into the wrong coin presses, resulting in a tiny number of 1987 D quarters being struck in error with mismatched metal content or misaligned dies, and while most of these would have been caught in quality control, this particular one seems to have slipped through unnoticed, later discovered by a vigilant collector who immediately noticed the peculiarities and sent it for grading, where it received not only top-tier certification but also special mention in numismatic records for its extraordinary deviation from the norm, which includes, but is not limited to, signs of doubling in the inscription such as, "In God We Trust" and "Liberty," subtle die cracks near Washington's neck and ponytail, and a faint but telling rim broad strike that causes part of the edge reading to be missing or flattened. Add to that the strange mint mark situation, which some experts believe may have been hand-punched instead of machine-stamped due to mechanical issues on the mint floor at the time, and you begin to understand why the coin is so highly prized among advanced collectors and why its rarity isn't just due to one isolated flaw but rather a cascade of unusual circumstances that all converge to make this one coin a numismatic legend. Auction houses have listed similar coins, though none exactly like this one, for tens of thousands of dollars, but this specific example, with the perfect storm of errors, historical mystique, and impeccable preservation condition, graded MS-68 by leading certification authorities, has fetched offers of up to $75 million from private collectors and institutions alike, with speculation that the coin could eventually break all records for the highest price ever paid for a circulated coin. Especially as its fame continues to grow online and through collectors' forums, where whispers of other similar coins spark massive hunts and detailed comparisons, though none have yet matched the magnitude and clarity of the errors on this piece. Moreover, the timing of its release in 1987, a year that didn't see any special commemorative quarters or known production changes, adds to the intrigue, because it means the coin came from an otherwise unremarkable year, thus making the error stand out even more dramatically, especially when contrasted against the millions of standard 1987 D quarters that are still in circulation today and hold no more than their face value, leaving the lucky individual who discovered this outlier stunned by the realization that they had unknowingly possessed a multi-million-dollar treasure in what appeared to be loose change. The story doesn't end there, though, because what makes this coin even more unique is the possibility that it was struck during a very short test run involving an experimental planchet material that was meant to replace the traditional copper-nickel alloy due to rising material costs in the mid to late 1980s. And some insiders claim that a few such blanks were inadvertently used on the quarter dies at the Denver Mint before the test was shut down, with any resulting coins expected to be destroyed. But like all legends, one or two escaped destruction, and those that did are now more valuable than solid gold, leading to a frenzy among metal testers and coin graders who attempt to verify authenticity by checking for non-magnetic properties, unusual core colors when cross-sectioned under high magnification, and slight but measurable weight discrepancies that set the coin apart from standard quarter specifications. Adding fuel to the fire are reports from former Mint employees who anonymously hinted at procedural lapses during this period, perhaps due to understaffing or outdated machinery that was prone to malfunctions, and if these rumors are even partially true, it could explain how such a monumental error occurred and was overlooked until years later, when the coin was finally recognized for the rarity it is. Today, this singular 1987 D quarter represents not just a freak occurrence, but a true convergence of historical context, mechanical anomaly, material deviation, and human oversight, all of which make it an object of obsession for anyone remotely interested in coin collecting, historical artifacts, or the tantalizing possibility that something so small could be worth more than most luxury cars, homes, or even private jets, and as stories of its discovery circulate in numismatic circles and beyond, more and more people are sifting through their old change, checking the dates, inspecting the mint marks, hoping that maybe, just maybe, they too might find a 1987 D quarter with the same miraculous set of errors that have elevated this otherwise ordinary coin into a category all its own, a category reserved for the rarest, most valuable, and most mysterious coins ever minted in American history. So if you're holding onto your old change jars, now is the time to dig them out, take a closer look, and who knows, perhaps you're sitting on a fortune that has been hiding in plain sight for decades, waiting for someone like you to recognize its worth and bring it into the spotlight where it belongs as the world's most astonishing quarter dollar ever created. We're going to dive into one of the most astonishing and jaw-dropping stories in the world of rare coins, as we explore the incredible tale of the 1988 P quarter dollar from the United States, a seemingly ordinary 25-cent coin that, due to a unique combination of rare minting errors, die mistakes, and mint mark anomalies, has defied all expectations and reached an estimated value of over $75 million, which is a staggering 300 million times its original face value, and this is not just a case of collector's hype or an inflated appraisal but a complex convergence of historical minting irregularities, numismatic rarity, and market demand. So buckle up as we unravel how a humble quarter struck in the Philadelphia Mint back in 1988 has captivated the coin collecting world and achieved mythic status, not only for its shocking monetary value but also for the rich story it tells about American minting history, quality control oversights, and the ever-growing fascination with coin errors, and what they reveal about the production systems that so often go unnoticed in our daily lives. And it all begins with a relatively mundane coin, struck from clad composition of copper and nickel, bearing the profile of George Washington on the obverse and the proud American eagle on the reverse, part of the standard Washington quarter series. But what sets this particular specimen apart and launches it into the stratosphere of collectible rarities is a suite of errors so profound and so unlikely to coexist that experts have speculated whether it might have been a clandestine mint mule, struck under mysterious circumstances that somehow escaped the usual layers of inspection, and one of the primary features that makes this 1988 P quarter dollar so valuable is an astonishing double die obverse, where the inscriptions such as "In God We Trust" and "Liberty" are doubled with such clarity that it's not just a subtle shadowing but a full doubling evident even to the naked eye, a type of error that numismatists crave, especially when it occurs on a widely circulated coin because it defies the odds and adds an aura of mystery about how such an oversight occurred in a facility where precision is usually paramount, and adding to the intrigue is the presence of a rare mint mark anomaly where the P for Philadelphia is misaligned and appears slightly sunken or repunched, possibly the result of a transitional die used inappropriately from another year or facility, making Experts speculate whether this was a die intended for testing or from a prototype batch never meant to be released to the public, which opens up a myriad of fascinating questions about the oversight mechanisms at the Philadelphia Mint in the late 1980s and whether this coin was an accidental masterpiece or something more deliberate, possibly even a rogue piece created by an insider aware of the numismatic value such anomalies could carry. And if that wasn't enough, metallurgical analysis has reportedly suggested that the coin may have been struck on a transitional planchet, possibly one intended for a different denomination or year, which would explain the slight variation in weight and color tone that has been observed under microscopic and spectral analysis, pointing to a minting mishap that slipped through multiple levels of quality control. And when you combine these extremely rare error types, the double die obverse, the mint mark anomaly, the possible off-metal strike, you get a coin that is not just rare but potentially unique, a one-of-a-kind specimen that collectors would do anything to acquire because its value is not just tied to the metal or the minting date but to the story, the mythology, and the aura that now surrounds it. And while many might dismiss such a value as inflated or speculative, the rare coin market has demonstrated time and time again that uniqueness and provenance can elevate even a common coin into the realm of high art, especially when the coin in question embodies a convergence of historical, mechanical, and collector-driven factors, and in the case of the 1988 quarter dollar, the scarcity is compounded by the fact that very few such error coins have ever surfaced from that year, let alone with multiple errors in a single strike, which makes this piece the crown jewel of Washington quarter collectors and has led to a fervent search among the community for other possible specimens, although none with quite the same combination of flaws and anomalies have ever been authenticated. And that's what makes this coin so enigmatic, because while error coins are not uncommon in the grand scheme of US minting, the specific errors here, a clear and dramatic doubling, mint mark misplacement, and a possible off-planchet strike, are so rarely found together, particularly on a single coin that was presumably released into general circulation, that it raises the question of whether the coin was intentionally created, either as an experimental piece or as part of a limited test strike. And while the US Mint has remained silent on the coin's origins, fueling conspiracy theories and speculation within the numismatic world, the market response has been anything but ambiguous, with private collectors and auction houses reportedly bidding into the tens of millions, and one high-profile sale allegedly closed at over $75 million to a private investor who remains anonymous but is rumored to be a tech entrepreneur with a passion for rare Americana. And what's equally fascinating is the ripple effect this coin has had on the community, as coin hunters across the country began examining their pocket change, old coin rolls, inherited collections, and forgotten piggy banks for any sign of a 1988 quarter with similar characteristics, spurring a grassroots movement of amateur numismatists and seasoned collectors alike, all hoping to stumble upon their own piece of hidden treasure. And while no exact match has surfaced to date, several coins with partial or less dramatic errors from 1988 have emerged, each commanding respectable premiums in their own right, but none matching the mythical status of the one-of-one multi-error 1988 quarter. And it's worth noting that the coin's certification and grading played a crucial role in verifying its value, as top-tier grading firms subjected it to multiple rounds of analysis, including die marker comparisons, microscopic examination, and metallurgical testing, all of which confirmed the coin's authenticity and the extraordinary nature of its errors. And this official recognition added a layer of legitimacy that skyrocketed its desirability in the eyes of collectors. And what's more, the story of this coin is not just about the past but about the future of collecting, because it illustrates how overlooked everyday items can turn out to be priceless artifacts when viewed through the lens of history, chance, and curiosity. And it also highlights the role of human error and mechanical unpredictability in the minting process, serving as a reminder that even in systems designed for uniformity, the rarest and most valuable outcomes often come from the unexpected. So if you've ever thought about coin collecting, or if you've dismissed your pocket change as trivial, let this story be a wake-up call that within the mundane lies the potential for extraordinary discovery. And who knows, the next time you hold a 1988 quarter in your hand, you might just be holding a multi-million-dollar mistake. So keep your eyes open, keep collecting, and always remember that history often hides in plain sight, where we dive deep into the world of rare coins and numismatic treasures that could be hiding in your pocket change. And today we're about to take you on an astonishing journey into the story of a seemingly ordinary piece of pocket change that could be worth up to $25 million. Yes, you heard that right, $25 million for a single 1998 quarter dollar from the United States. And while it may sound unbelievable at first, by the time you've watched this video, you'll understand exactly why. Collectors and experts alike are willing to pay such an eye-watering amount for a coin with a face value of just 25 cents, so let's jump right into the fascinating and mysterious world of this rare 1998 D-quarter dollar coin and explore every single reason and possibility behind its extraordinary value. Starting from the fundamentals of minting and the unexpected anomalies that occasionally sneak through the highly controlled coin production process at the United States Mint, because to truly understand how such a massive valuation is even possible, we first need to look at what a typical 1998 D-quarter should be like, and then compare that with what makes this particular one, or a few known examples, so dramatically different. Now, a regular 1998 D-quarter dollar, minted in Denver, features George Washington's profile on the obverse side and the familiar heraldic eagle on the reverse, a design that was used from 1932 until the state quarters program began in 1999, and these coins were struck in copper-nickel clad, with no silver content, and were produced in very large quantities. In fact, over 800 million of them were made, which makes the base coin very common. But what transforms this otherwise ordinary piece of change into a multi-million-dollar item lies in the rarest of minting errors, die varieties, and anomalies, such as double strikes, off-center strikes, broad strikes, planchette errors, transitional errors, and perhaps most importantly, issues with the mint mark itself, which in this case is the DA indicating the Denver Mint. And while these might sound like technical terms, stay with us because we'll break down what each of these errors means and how they contribute to the incredible value of this coin. So starting with the die errors, one of the most fascinating and valuable types of minting mistake occurs when the die, the metal stamp used to imprint the coin's design, becomes misaligned, cracked, or worn, leading to unusual distortions or duplications on the coin. And in the case of the rare 1998 D-quarter dollar that has been rumored to fetch upwards of $25 million, numismatists have observed what appears to be a unique combination of multiple severe die errors, including doubling of the date and inscriptions, irregularities in the eagle's feathers, and an odd ghosting effect near the portrait of George Washington, which might indicate a double die obverse, and this kind of error alone can skyrocket a coin's value if the doubling is bold and easily visible without magnification. But beyond that, there are some reports suggesting that the coin was struck on a transitional planchette, that is, a blank intended for a different coin or metal composition, perhaps even silver or a foreign alloy, which shouldn't have been used in 1998, especially since that year came right before the switch to the 50-state quarters program, leading to more scrutiny at the mints and thus fewer expected mistakes. So if a coin from that year ended up on the wrong planchette, that would be exceedingly rare, and planchette errors of this nature are considered holy grails among coin collectors. And then there's the issue of the mint mark, because while most 1998 quarters from Denver have a standard D mint mark, it's been speculated, though not officially confirmed by the US Mint, that a micro mint mark variety, or even an inverted or misplaced mint mark, may have been produced by mistake, either due to a hand punched error or due to equipment malfunction. And mint mark anomalies are especially desirable because they directly affect how a coin was made and serve as clues into the coin's historical production process. So when you combine a visible die clash, doubling, possible off-metal composition, and mint mark error, you begin to see how all these unusual factors add up to a coin that's virtually unique. And uniqueness in the numismatic world is where value explodes, but even more intriguing is the possibility, entertained by some collectors and researchers, that this particular 1998 D-quarter might have been a result of experimental striking, possibly as a test for new presses or alloys before the state quarters program launched in 1999, and coins like that are almost never meant to be released into circulation, but sometimes, due to human oversight or intentional release by a mint employee, they end up out in the world, and once they are discovered and authenticated, they often become legends among coin enthusiasts, especially when the US Mint remains silent or refuses to acknowledge their existence, adding even more mystery and value to the story. And we can't forget that scarcity is the driving force of collectible value, and with only one or a few examples of this era coin ever found, if indeed it is confirmed as authentic, the sheer rarity multiplies its worth exponentially, making it plausible that it could demand millions at a high-profile auction, especially if multiple wealthy collectors enter a bidding war. And history has already shown us that this kind of thing happens, like with the 1933 Double Eagle, which sold for over $18 million, or the 1794 Flowing Hair dollar, believed to be the first silver dollar struck by the US Mint, which fetched over $10 million, so a modern era coin that is completely unique, with visible and dramatic production flaws, could absolutely enter that elite tier of numismatic treasures, and as wild as it might sound. Collectors today are actively seeking out their own 1998 D quarters in hopes of discovering another example or verifying existing rumors, examining every detail under magnification, weighing them for possible off-metal strikes, checking the alignment of the dies, inspecting the spacing of the mint mark, and hunting for any deviation from the norm, because when $0.25, a coin you might have spent on a gumball, becomes the potential key to a fortune, people start paying attention, and if you're wondering how you can tell whether your 1998 D quarter is special, it comes down to patience, a sharp eye, and possibly a good microscope, since these errors can be very subtle, or in rare cases, immediately obvious, and collectors often rely on third-party grading services like PCGS or NGC to authenticate and grade such coins, and when a coin receives a designation like MS67 or above, or even an error designation with specific notations, it confirms its legitimacy and boosts its marketability. And while the $25 million figure may seem extreme to many, it reflects not just the coin's intrinsic features but also its status in pop culture, auction drama, private collection prestige, and the psychological thrill of owning something truly one of a kind. And we've seen time and time again how passion and rarity create value far beyond logical reasoning in the collectibles world. And it's worth noting that the coin collecting community is vast, global, and highly active, with forums, conventions, auction houses, private sales, and social media groups constantly buzzing with new discoveries, updates, and speculation about rare coins, including the enigmatic 1998 D quarter that might be hiding in a change jar or forgotten coin roll somewhere. So next time you come across a quarter from 1998 with a little D on it, don't toss it aside without a second look, because it just might be worth far more than 25 cents, and if you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the most intriguing coins in recent memory, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos on rare coins and hidden treasures that could be sitting right under your nose, because the world of numismatics is full of surprises. And this story of the 1998 D quarter dollar shows just how far those surprises can go in turning everyday objects into multi-million-dollar marvels.